What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life. Or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah!
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Hey, happy hour on a Wednesday, a week before game week for the Coyotes, for the Jackrabbits, for Augie and USF at our high schools. It's that time of year, and today is nothing but USD Day here on Happy Hour. Running back Charles Pierre Jr. Remember him? One of the best running backs in the nation, and he's back. Linebacker Gabriel Hardman, one of the best defensive players in the Mo Valley. He's on our show today from Vermilion. But leading things off is the voice of the Coyotes, and he's joining us from the Nebraska-South Dakota border. One of the great places to golf in all of the, in my opinion, country, the Prairie Lodge. But don't try to get a hold of him like we have. He's doing this just for us. And I'm so thankful that he is. John Thayer, how many years now as the voice of Coyote football and men's basketball?
Yeah, I started in a COVID year. Remember that spring when we had about 4 games? That was year number 1. So It's been a pretty fun ride, obviously, over the last couple of years with USD having some success, finding some playoffs, and it's been fun.
And how many years now overall on the football broadcast, just being in Vermilion for you?
Well, my first year doing women's basketball was in 2012. So I've seen a few things around here. 2013, I think it was, the 13-14 season. So been around and seen some changes.
Yes, you have. And I'm so thankful. And on your golf vacation, right before all the madness starts, we're sorry to make you work a little bit here, but you seem up to the task of talking about the Yotes. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. It's great to chat with you.
Yeah. Quick word before we jump in. We have lots of coverage at SiouxFallsLive.com. We have a Coyote football page. Both Matt Zimmer and Trey Houchin, our USD guy, have been in Vermilion covering practices, doing in-depth stories, not just on the 3-horse quarterback race or the retooled offensive and defensive lines, all of it. Coyote football page at SiouxFallsLive.com, where you can also watch this chat if you want to see our young and good-looking faces as we talk Coyote football, and plenty of USD clips and highlights from practice and last year's games behind us at SiouxFallsLive.com. We also had Matt Vitzthum, the head coach, on last July, a month ago, at MVFC Media Day, and we'll be chatting with Vitz every single week starting next week during the football season. So next week, as we get ready for game 1, we'll have Vitz every week. So there's a lot there. Plus, Scott Jones, Mr. USD. Who else would it be? The man is one of the GOATs of all time, Hall of Famer, quarterback of the team that reached the national semifinals in D2 40 years ago, back-to-back. They're having a reunion this year. Scott Jones joined us to talk about the glorious past, but also the very promising present and future. And he's a big part of that as a high-rolling booster. So that was a great chat on Monday. It's all there for you, SiouxFallsLive.com. All right, now that that's out of the way, John, 30,000-foot view. I asked you, you're 14 years into your time at USD, and that includes all the football games because you were the sideline guy before you took over the booth. And 7 years. There's a lot has happened. You got here right when still the transition to D1 was young and struggling, and now here we are, 3 straight years, quarterfinal berths, only team in the nation that can say it has done that. 3rd different head coach in the last 3 years. And yet, talking about Scott Jones and boosters, new facilities are coming. The Dome is going to be a football-only stadium. $47 million raised since John Schemmel took over as AD. you're there. You're in the thick of it. So the big view of USD athletics, starting with football, which is always kind of the front door. What's it like? What's it like right now? What's the vibe?
Well, I think there's a lot of excitement just around USD athletics in general because you look over the last couple of years, they've gotten some head coaches in place and built some of the programs headed in the right direction. We saw women's basketball, kind of take a dip, but then their resurgence last year and feel like that can continue to build. And men's basketball as well. And obviously volleyball has remained to be a competitor every year. Football's continued to grow and football's taken a while. This is a university that tried to commit to building football, and it had to have the right coaches in place to build it. And none of them took the route of trying to build this thing overnight. So it was just a one and done. They've tried to build it over years, and it's taken a long time. And for our fans, I know the quarterfinals are great and they want more. But if you would have looked back, if 10 years ago, you would have said at some point, we'll go to the quarterfinals 3 straight years and one of them is going to be a semifinals. I don't know if anybody would have believed you, to be honest. But it's been a building process and it's been a lot of fun to see because this program has gone so far in the last decade and excited to see where Coach Vitzthum can take it.
Right. Well, as we mentioned, third different head coach in the last 3 seasons, but of course, Bob Nielsen was here for almost a decade and really was the guy that's built this to where it is. So that's part of the answer to the question I'm about to ask you. I mean, you're in the FCS, and when you're in the FCS, your best players, some of them are going to go off to the FBS once they've had one great season of FCS. So there's been a revolving door of really good players. There's been a revolving door of head coaches and some assistants and coordinators in the last 3 or 4 years. The one constant has been Aiden Bauman, but he's gone. And yet, again, this program feels so solid and so stable. And there's fairly high expectations again this year, despite some of those losses of players and coaches. In your mind, why? Aiden Bauman's one. You set the stage with Bob Nielsen. But why are things so solid and so stable?
I think it's just been the foundation that's been laid. They've been able to get some guys in the program who have stayed here for 2 and 3 years, and that group, Aiden and Travis Tice and a bunch of those guys that elected to stay here a few years ago and really commit to this thing and ended up in the semifinals because of it. That was a really special group, and I think that they just continue to implement to younger guys like you can play here, you can do something special here. And the other thing is, we're getting the guys who are good enough to play. You'll see the top level of the FCS, Montana's, South Dakota State, North Dakota State for a long time. They're getting players that definitely can play in the FBS level, but they want to play right now, right? And they want to play at a very high level. And so we're getting a lot of those guys, and they're proving what they're doing. But I think the foundation's been laid. The culture has changed over the last, 7 years, 5 to 7 years. And I think they're starting to recruit to that culture, getting coaches who understand it. And right now it's working. It feels like a special place, and it feels like a season that USD could have another fun run.
We're going to dive into some of those players that are going to be major parts of how things unfold in 2026. But the new head coach, Matt Vitzthum, we've had a chance to talk to him the day he took over and was introduced. And one spring football conversation, a delightful 15-minute chat in July. You've been able to see practices, be around him and the staff. What have been your overall observations as an insider of since Travis Johansson left and Matt Vitzthum has taken over?
Well, I think I'll go back even further than that. Matt Vitzthum was on the staff for 2 years. And I think one thing I noticed in practice is like players really enjoyed being around him. Like you could tell that he just had a knack to get players to play. And we saw it with Aiden Bauman. I mean, he and Aiden were so close last year, and it just changed how Aiden's season went for the better. But as the head coach, it feels like leadership has been a big thing that has just jumped out. It kind of sounds like coach speak maybe a little bit, but I mean, the way he's getting out there and he's forcing guys to get hydration breaks and he's telling them what they need to do to get better and all of it. Like, to me, all of it is just, they're going to buy in because they feel that leadership with him. And I think that's been a big part of it. You could tell his emotion and how tied in he is to this. He wants it to work. He knows it can work. And, he's probably going to have some ups and downs year one as a head coach, right? Some decisions you have to make on the fly, and you can play those out in your head a million times, and we can look back as fans and say, well, that was the wrong decision, right? But in the time you got to make those decisions, we're going to find out what he's like there. But what I can tell you is I've been around sports a long time like you have, and when you get coaches that players enjoy being around, they're going to play hard for them, and that is half the battle. Wins and losses are going to come as they come, but you get players that get out there and compete hard because of who they're playing for. That says a lot.
Of course, the last couple of years he had been the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, but not the OC calling plays, which he has said has worked to his advantage because he can take a step back. And even though I don't know he was going to be the next head coach after just one season of Johansson, he got a feel for the overall game versus the tunnel vision you have when you're controlling and in charge of one side of the ball. But he worked closely with Aiden Bauman, and now he has to decide between three quarterbacks who he has repeated all have a strong skill set and who he's going to be confident in no matter who it's going to be when things open up with Central Connecticut State a week from Saturday. Matt Zimmer and I yesterday on our college football preview show, Jackson Yotes edition, we really dove into the skill sets of Austin Majeski, the freshman, who a week ago it appeared had kind of taken the front runner reins, the two-time Gatorade Player of the Year from Colorado. And then you have a senior transfer from Dartmouth in Jackson Proctor, and a senior who's been at USD his whole time, Nevin Cremascoli, and a little more experience. They're seniors and a little more time in the system. And we talked about how maybe this won't be decided by game one. What have you observed from these quarterbacks and your sense of how different the offense may be from what we've known from Aiden Bauman this year?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing that jumps out is no matter who gets the job, they all, no offense to Aiden, they all move a little better than Aiden did. So being able to get out and run a little bit and gain some yardage, and Aiden could do that when he absolutely had to. For the most part, he didn't have to, and he knew how to make good decisions. You look at those three guys, and obviously Jackson is the guy who has the most game experience at this level. He played as a starter for Dartmouth before he went to Northern Illinois, and I know Dartmouth is in the Ivy League, but when you go out and you play and you put up numbers, that still says something about you. Nevin came here from Northern Illinois. He's been in the program a couple years ago. He was used more as kind of a gadget guy. They'd get him in there and run some plays. He'd throw it. He'd run the ball, do things like that. Didn't get utilized as much last year, but a guy who's obviously very familiar with the program. And then Austin, and you talked about him, and he feels like a guy who has a lot of upside, to be honest with you. I've watched all these guys a lot, and I think Austin throws the ball exceptionally well, and he can get out and move, but he's a young guy, right? He's in his second year in college football. He hasn't played a snap. So there's going to be some ups and downs, and programs have gone through that. So, I think when you look at those guys, anybody that goes out there will have the skill set to go out and compete. And what the coaches have to really make it boil down to, I think, is whoever they feel like runs the offense the best and really controls the huddle and things like that. Because you can all go out there and throw touchdowns. You can all go out there and make mistakes and turn the ball over and things like that. But you have to be able to command the huddle. And I've seen Austin take a lot of reps. And, I know there's a lot of people saying he's been the front runner. And we've seen him take a lot of the number one reps. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But really excited to see who they name as the quarterback. And whoever it is, what they're able to do, build some confidence here early on.
And maybe if they use more than one quarterback, we'll have to see. We'll learn a little bit more next week as we get it to game time. This was an offense that, you mentioned who's going to have the best command of the offense. It didn't turn the ball over a whole lot last year. Aiden was really smart making sure that didn't happen. And that ended up being a big reason why this team, although starting 0-2, 2-3, 5-4, they win 4 in a row. They blow out Mercer, the number 6 team in the country, on the road before the season ended in Montana. And we know Charles Pierre, it's a familiar name. You lose Lorenzo Fenner and LJ Phillips to Power 4 schools or to FBS schools. This is where we give the fans what they want. You've been there. You know a little bit more than most people who have access down there. Besides Charles Pierre, who do you really expect offensively to have, You can safely say you're going to call his name a lot on the broadcast, and he's going to make plays.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a couple of guys. I think the way they utilize Tennell Bryant and Keandre Jones-Logan is going to be huge for this offense. Keandre is lining up more as a true running back, but don't be surprised if they split him out, right, and do some different things with him. He's just versatile. He's got incredible speed. Tennell Bryant's a guy that they don't feel like they utilized to his skill set last year, and they know as an offense, and it's a focus to figure out his skill set and use it because he's a player that can be really explosive. So those guys, and then another one I know our fans started clamoring for last year because he got good in the return game. Braden White has a chance to be really, really good at wide receiver for this group, and they're going to need that, right? They're going to need a couple of guys to step up at the wide receiver room. I like Tyson Bowes and Tennell, but they're going to need other guys, Bryce Cahoon and Braden White, guys like that to really step up. And Braden White is going to be put in a position where he'll have a lot of opportunities, make some big plays, and that's a name that we'll definitely know and have a lot to talk about by the end of the year.
Okay, same thing on defense. The line had to be retooled, but Chris Dixon is back. We're about to talk to Gabe Hartman, so you can tell me what you've seen from him. But what do you expect to be the strong suit and the thing to be most concerned about, at least to start the season?
Yeah, Gabe's unbelievable. He's a great football player, but he's a great human being. And this is a guy that coaches told me, look, he's not just our defensive guy. Like, he might be the heartbeat of this entire team. Like, his emotion and the way he plays the game and helps out, like, he's the guy that can really make them go. So Gabe Hardman's obviously got to have a really good season, and I'm really interested to see what the secondary looks like. Obviously, R.J. Stewart's back, and I think Jalen Bain Peterson looks way better this year so far than he did last year, and Josh Grant, who transferred in. I think up front, somebody like Isaiah Ray is going to be a name that people are going to get to know very, very quickly. He's going to be a big contributor up front. Him and John Starman are a couple of those guys that are going to take the pressure off of Chris Dixon. And I love Chris Dixon, man. He's been around for his whole career, and I've talked to him the last few years, and you could tell, like, going into last year, he really took that jump of, look, I want to play football. I want to be good at this. And he's really excited. I know that D line's going to be a special group. Isaiah Ray, and you can't forget about Nathan LePerry. Yeah, he came on. He had a couple of sacks down at Lamar in that loss down in Beaumont, and a player that when he's healthy, you have to game plan for.
Okay. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Matt Zimmer and I went through the schedule, the MVFC, all the other stuff that mixes into what kind of a season it might turn out to be. But no doubt there's plenty of reasons to be excited. So, and you and I could go on for another hour just babbling like this. We only skimmed the surface, but I've got to get to Charles Pierre and Gabriel Hartman, and you've got to go play some golf. Are you doing the dunes or the pines this afternoon?
We're headed out to the dunes, so it's
okay.
Very limited wind. This is a top 3 day for the dunes course out here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're lucky. Yeah. Prairie Club, by the way, I misspoke. You're in the lodge at the Prairie Club, and you're far too kind to take a break from your last vacation before things hit the road to work with us here. So thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Glad to make it work, and anytime you need anything, you know how to reach me.
Voice of the Coyotes on the radio broadcasts, of course, at goyotes.com and the Yotecast as well. That's underway. Thanks, John. John Thayer, USD Day here on Happy Hour.